Italy? Whiskey? Ah, Italy, you could never look at my secret. Oh no, suddenly, don't leave me. Let's begin. Indeed.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is the Fireside Chat. And I thought it would be kind of an interesting idea to have Mitch back on. Or do we still call you? For some of you, maybe you know him as Charming Man 93 from way back in the day, way back in the ancient times of 2014, 2015.
2015, yeah.
Yeah, 2015. And the reason for this is actually because I saw one of your videos, and it was, I believe, like, what is a woman? The great, like, non-debate.
Yeah,
yes, the great non-debate. Yeah. And so that's what I kind of want to delve into and talk about, because you're the only person besides me and us here at HBR who have like brought up this kind of perspective on the whole debate about what a woman is, that I think that most people are missing and is extremely crucial to actually like working this out. So it's not even that I believe that the question of what a woman is isn't important, but like what you should be asking is how did we get here? And that is,
here?
Sorry, yeah, how did we get here? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I saw your video and I thought, yeah, really interesting. I want to like talk a little bit about it. So for those of you guys who are watching, if you could please, give this video a like right now, help us like reach more, maybe share it out, and and all of that. Like, we really appreciate it. So
allow me to do that right now.
Oh yeah. If you don't mind, you want here? I'll send you the link. I have it.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'll just.
I think this is.
I'll drop it in
right?
there.
It's a second.
Yeah, no, at least third time, if not more. I think we've because, we talked to you in London, and then you interviewed us for something.
We went to Manchester, not London, remember?
I'm sorry, it was Manchester. I was saying London as a substitute for just the UK in general, which is it's dumb.
People in London, but not you guys.
Yeah. No, I should have. Yeah, it was Manchester, and we did some interviews, and then I think I've had you on the show a couple times because I think that you're on like the appropriate wavelength in my estimation based on the info as I have it. So, all right. So I've given you the link. It's in there. And again, for you guys, give us likes, give us, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Huh?
It's Alison's face as the avatar. I like that. It's quite
funny. Yeah, because she's got me using her Zoom account because she's paying for like the extra perks. So like your meetings can go longer and you can have more people on. But, she's paying for that. So, but anyway, so what is a woman? The great non-debate. So this is what I thought about this when I saw this happening, and I've noticed this for a while. Like a lot of content creators, whether they're conservative content creators or more like these classical liberal. I don't know if they still call themselves that, but like the Lotus Eaters and all of these people.
I don't think they do anymore. From what
I haven't heard it being used. Maybe it's just become a cringe term, but I think that they're, in general, you could just say moderates, rationalist, liberal types, and conservative types are all, commenting on this, what is a woman thing, which is basically, talking about not Matt Walsh's documentary, just to be clear and specific, but rather
I haven't seen that, so I'm not gonna like judge it or anything.
Yeah, I've seen it, and it was informative, but not. I knew most of the stuff that was talked about, but what I think is what we're really talking about is the broader debate or discussion around essentially the what's happening with women's spaces, and that's the part that I am like interested in terms of discussion and what's important. And what I'm noticing is that on all sides, you could say, at least for the people who aren't gender ideologues, in the way that they oppose this, there is a massive discussion and concern and worry about how women are affected by this. Right. And when you made your video, I got the sense that you were basically saying, and I want to, know what you think, that like, why are we so focused on how women are affected instead of talking about what happened to men to put them in a position where they're trying to encroach, if you want to call it that, on women's spaces? Like, and I think that that's the real issue, right? So, what do you think? Is that why you made the video? What was on your mind?
That was a small part of it. I would say it was more from a strategic point of view, like an activist point of view. I just, because it was more like, well, the right wing, they like to fall for these distracting tactics that the left like to put out there. So there'll be like this big hot button topic that will last for years. So, for example, it has been the trans thing for at least 7 years, 2016, something like that, right?
The trans thing goes.
It started off with just bathrooms, and now it's what is a woman, and they still keep falling for it because that was also a distraction. Whilst they were pushing things like critical race theory and just critical theory in general into schools on an ever increasing pace. Like, it was always there, but they would slowly but surely implementing it because they can't just do it full force straight ahead, otherwise they'll be caught. Like, it's not called a long march through the institutions for a reason. And I just felt like, and it wasn't even me who came up with that. I can't even remember who it was who said it first, but whoever it was, it might have been raise a fist, because it was anybody who has some kind of that kind of thing as a distraction, which is used by the left to create this big debate over that is over nothing. Like the whole transgender bathroom thing, it's common sense. If you're not at the point during your therapy and surgery where you look like a woman, then continue using the men's until you look like a woman, and you've gone through all the stuff, and then you use the women's. Like remember, they even asked Trump, like, because Caitlyn Jenner, Caitlyn, right, Caitlyn was visiting the White House, and they said, well, what bathroom is she going to use? And he said, I don't care. Because it's not an issue. Who cares? There's more important things. And now it's evolved because they've realized that the left have realized that this still works, distraction tactic. I think there's less people on the right falling for it now than there used to be, but very little. It's still mainly the boomers and people a little bit younger than them falling for it, like Matt. Although Matt Walsh, I don't know if he's fallen for this distraction, but I know a lot of people from the Daily Wire kind of things have. And I just feel like it distracts from the real institutional issues. But there is the male side of it too, where for the past, how long? 60 years? 50
probably
years?
It probably started 100 years ago, but yeah. Probably,
it all sat at least during the
it's in small ways, right? Like that's why I say it's been like we've been essentially like demonizing the male identity, just the masculine identity itself, for like 100 years, and using it. Well, I would say mostly women, but not exclusively. You use it to essentially like, surveil, control, or otherwise get things out of men. So if you think about, at least in the United States, we had prohibition, and it was the women that pushed for it, that essentially said that, men who drink beat their wives, we want to do this for that. And of course, this is why men are terrible, etc. And so they went along with it. And I think it's a small thing, like they didn't necessarily try to feminize men from that. But over time, I think that, you just nudge a little, eat away at masculine identity, eat away at like what's good about masculinity, to the point where simply presuming that masculinity is awful becomes the new default for people. And I think that was what was going on in the 60s. But it had already been sufficiently eroded you know, going back like to
And
probably
they
before
start
the 20th century.
eroding spaces. So they were kicking,
Yeah.
if they weren't kicking men out of places where they couldn't hang around with men, because, you know, we love to hang out with women too, and women like to hang out with us, but you need our own time with the boys and with the girls. That's something that's been well known since the dawn of time, you know.
Yeah.
But for some reason, because I still don't, I think it's a matter of control. It all comes down to control and power. I think that's what it is. But I still don't know the other reasons why the left chose to go through with this with feminism.
You mean the
But,
yeah. Well,
but like it started off with the workplace, although to be fair, the workplace was nowhere near as segregated historically as people make out anyway. At least the classes. But they started off by, you know, putting women into office work and stuff like that, and then slowly but surely went to more, you know, leisure places. So like,
yeah.
most recently, famously, it was the Boy Scouts of America. It's no longer the Boy Scouts of America. It's the America now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before that, you had the
just
Girl
the
Scouts and the Boy Scouts. And the reason why
Yeah.
they changed it was because girls don't get to see the stuff the boys do, when you could just, you could just, change the curriculum of the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. You know, boys do sewing and stuff, which is a very good skill.
Yeah.
Or girls do more, you know, rugged hiking. Like, again, like, but no, they don't. It's about a matter of control, bringing one of the last few places for boys under their control. And yet this happened, and they said nothing at the time. In fact, I don't think the word TERF was even really a thing. It might have been, but only within their circles. They did nothing. They actually applauded it. Have done for decades. Now all of a sudden the same thing is happening to them in regards to some women's spaces. Not every single case, let's be honest. It's only sports, and that's about it. I can't think of any other thing that is predominantly, if not entirely female, that is being threatened by trans women, really. You know,
well,
at least they're trying to let men in. They're not. They think that trans women are women, these intersectionals.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah, no, it's a religious belief, basically. So you couldn't really make the argument that they're intentionally being dishonest to, you know, destroy an industry. It's actually just we're just getting the fruits. This is just the fruit of all that we have basically done to maleness. And that's why, you know, I think that, like, I'm not all that invested in trying to stop it or getting really upset about it, because again, you know, this is like most of the people who are fighting against this, or they don't want this to continue, you know, where men are biological men are joining women's sports and dominating them or whatever. Most of them were silent when, you know, the male identity was being attacked. I mean, like, in my mind, I think of it like this. What drives a man to feel like, because by the way, we're not really concerned with women identifying as men. I don't know if everyone's noticed this, but that has not been a problem.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, like
men are surprisingly marginalized.
Yeah, and the thing is like they don't make things obviously more difficult, like, for men, right? They're not like pushing men out of, you know, manly duties or whatever. You know, that's not happening.
One could make the argument that people, Elliot Page, what masculinity in men. I don't personally believe that. I think she's a joke, but, you know, I don't think she's belittling or making light of what men masculinity is.
Yeah.
I don't even think trans women really pose too much. I mean, neither really.
No, I mean, like, this stuff.
Some of my fans.
Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was just gonna say.
Some of my fans said, "Well, what about all the, you know?"
Wait, you're breaking up.
Stuff? But that's usually somebody pretend. Oh, am I? Oh,
yeah,
Is
you're
it better now?
It seems better. I'm sorry, but we missed some of what you were saying.
You pause for a bit at the end. It's funny that how it happens. No, what I was just so basically, some of my fans were saying, "Well, what about the fear of sexual assault and stuff?" Because there has been a few cases where trans women have raped. Are we even allowed to say that nowadays on YouTube? Who have done sexual assault towards women, but then they seem to be really small cases. In fact, a lot of the time it seems to be more men pretending to be trans. Even then, that's a small number too. Even small. Usually it's the same old, you know, patterns.
It's a subset within the subset, but the sexual assault thing is funny too, because the reason why people are making it into a threat at the scale that they believe it is only exists because they believe that about men. So if they believe that men would rape if given the opportunity, then they're going to and that's obviously not true. So few men engage in that kind of antisocial behavior that it's just such a tiny percentage. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be taking steps to minimize that, but this fear mongering around, trans women sexually assaulting women, it only exists because of these negative assumptions that people have about men, in their normal behavior.
More women who have done that there's probably more biological women who rape other biological women than trans women. Trans women are a teeny tiny percent. People don't realize how small a percentage of the population they actually are. And also, I just realized if they're still on their hormone therapy, which I think they have to be on for the rest of their life, I don't know. It's been a while. It kills, not for every single one of them, but for a lot of them, it kills their sex drive. Mm-hmm. So for a lot of them, they don't want to have sex anyway because it's been destroyed essentially. That's one of the prices some of them have to pay. Not all of them, because there's a lot of thirsty ones out there online, as we've seen. Sure.
Yeah. Well, and another thing too is it's very difficult to actually talk about the trans woman thing because, in general, the whole queer, part of the whole queer identity, because there's a lot of things that are, there are people who are on hormones and it's affecting their sex drive, and there are people who get operations and there are people who don't get operations, and there are people who do it as just because it's trendy and they don't actually have any plans to actually do anything, or they do it, they get caught up in the wave. And there are people who, for them, it's just a fetish. And those are usually the people that have I think the problems with sexual self-control. Maybe they're addicted to porn, but those groups, but all of those subgroups can exist within the same, I guess, under the same umbrella, but they're not we have to take everything as a case by case, because you don't know if the trans woman who assaulted a woman was actually trans or if they were just a perv. So, yeah. So the other thing,
distraction.
The distraction. I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
On it.
Yeah.
And they're getting involved in a civil war that they don't need to get involved in. Or if they need to get involved in, I would say make it worse for them. But no, instead they're helping one side over the other.
Mm-hmm. So the
that's tribalistic. I don't know.
I don't know. So I was thinking about your statement about how this whole trans thing is a diversion so that the left can do other things. And I'm inclined to think that actually it doesn't even have to be conscious, because I think that the let's say trans activists or queer theorists, they 100% believe, I think, what they're saying. I mean, some of them might be aware that a lot of it is lies, but even in that case, I think that they believe that their words can create reality. So they believe that if they can make a convincing enough, rhetorical argument that gender identity is whatever it is they say it is, it's a constantly moving target, and they make it convincing enough in their mind, they think they actually make it real. So it's sort of it's not operating from the idea that the truth exists outside of you. It's the idea that the truth is made by you. It's you can be your own arbiter of reality. And I think that really gives them a tremendous amount of power. I mean, this is what Bosch does in debates, right? Mm-hmm. He tries to use rhetoric, which is basically what he went to school for. And he uses it to create or construct a reality that you can't logically argue your way out of, because he's making it up as he goes along. And then he believes that if he wins the argument, by gish galloping and all these other tactics, that somehow it means that what he's saying is true. Yeah, exactly.
That's what he does, doesn't he? He goes.
Yeah. But the purpose is to try and control reality, and I think that it gives people a tremendous amount of power to feel like they can just say something, and then it becomes real, in their minds. And so I think that, like, because of that, this trans thing is. It's like most of these other causes, like Black Lives Matter and stuff. It's like it gets started and then it takes on a life of its own, and then like you don't even have to like actively use it as a kind of diversion, because the people arguing in favor of it they 100% believe in it most of the time, and so they're just pushing for it, even though it is, as you said, it's so unusual and rare as to be like, not worth your time, because we're looking at a tiny percentage of the population. So
it never was for years. It's funny, one of the first trans women in Britain died like last year, April Ashley, and yet not hardly anything in the media, by the way, about her, which is interesting. She was the first one, I'm pretty sure, in Britain. She had to go to Casablanca to have the operation and everything. Yet not a peep from her about her. Like, I think she was like 5th story on the BBC or something like that. Not one of these trans activists talked about her. And I think it's because, one, she was very old, she's in her 80s. And also, I think she may have had certain what they would consider outdated views that go against their modern narrative. Because a lot of the really old school trans women are not into this whole thing at all. That's not why they went through the process, And I don't know if she's ever said anything publicly about any of this, but I imagine she must have said something. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been so little fanfare. And also, again, like, it's such a niche thing. I still to this day don't really understand. Well, I mean, there's several theories. There's some that I believe in more than others, but I don't understand why it's been pushed to the forefront and why we have to care about it so much when we never used to. It seems to me like the trans people were accepted long before gays were in certain countries, at least in Europe. Like, you could get married as a trans woman in this country. I'm pretty sure there was no law about it, and there doesn't need to be a law now. Like, April Ashley got married after her operation. Whereas gay people couldn't get married until 2011, 2010.
Something like that.
As far as I'm concerned, the issues were already done and dusted. But I think part of it is because they always need something to fight for.
You have to keep something alive so that you have a cause. So yeah.
And then there's the slippery slope argument. I guess it's a slippery slope argument. So they got these rights, which we all agree with, blah, 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 blah. But it's really like maybe it's more a Mott and Bailey. So they got all this, but then there's this stuff behind the scenes that they really want to push. And eventually they'll make it more acceptable to say, push for pedo rights or something like that, which is, I think, what some people believe this was. If trans acceptance and then pedo acceptance or something, which, again, I'm inclined to believe both, but I don't know. It's only a small element of the left that want that pedo stuff anyway. I don't think it's the majority. I think most of them also believe in the wood chipper for them. It's a natural human reaction against that kind of stuff anyway. For most people, to what
I guess it depends on whether they're like kind of anti-natalist, like anti-family leftists, or if they're pro-family, which I don't suspect is very common, because I think that there is less sympathy for
pedo, though, to be fair.
No, not a pedo. I mean like a leftist, like a general, because like it's a common. There are some commonly held beliefs on the left that usually lead to, this kind of anti-natalist, anti-family thing. For example, overpopulation is a theory that like basically means we shouldn't have as many kids.
They're not the only ones who believe that. Even a lot of people on the conservative right or maybe not libertarians, they wouldn't believe that because they've read economics. But a lot of other right wingers also believe that. Quite a lot of them. That it exists, but it doesn't really, not in the Malthusian way anyway. No,
of course not. But like, and there are people who buy into it. I'm willing to like totally, you know, go along with the notion that in general, all of society has moved left, and then some have moved really far left, right? So we all kind of drift in that direction because it's like embedded and ubiquitous to our culture. And that's, there's a lot of reasons for that. But like, so yeah, you're going to get people who are going to say, yeah, I don't like overpopulation, and they could be anywhere on the spectrum. But the ultimate point of it, though, is that I think that to some degree it does affect people's thoughts on the idea of family and reproduction. And you know, you just need, like, it's fairly more common on one side, but it still exists everywhere. And yeah, it's something that I gotta, like, at least try to, like,
arguments.
Yeah,
Well, like, rising inflation, cost of living, it will make people not want to have kids. Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, you have to wonder if that isn't on purpose again, you know, so.
I think so.
Yeah.
To some extent, it depends what faction, though. Some of them are doing it by accident. They don't realize that this is the case. Like, for example, the one child policy in China, they just thought it would help stop overpopulation because they saw they had 1.5 billion people and were like, oh my God, what do we do? Because they're communists, they believe all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out doing that has created an even worse demographic situation for them. That was completely unintended. They didn't mean for that. So I think for most people pushing that stuff, it's unintended, like a lot of leftist economics. It's unintended consequences because they never think about it. But for some of them, there might be. I mean, the World Economic Forum, for example, might be doing stuff like that on purpose. That seems to be their MO. But I think a lot of them, they just don't know what they're doing because they haven't read Thomas Sowell.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with people that just, you know, they have like a dream scenario they're pursuing, and they're not thinking about the harm they might do pursuing it. Or they don't care, or they're pretty sure that they're not going to be included, you know, amongst that, or like as part of that. So, okay. So anyway, going back to the thing. Yeah. So I guess it's all right. So I guess what I was kind of like, what I had been thinking regarding this, you know, trans queer theory thing that's going on. I believe there are plenty of things to truly be concerned about. Like the push for, you know, queer theory to be taught to children, and and very young children, and like the sort of like fishy groomery things that are going on. And I you know, do you watch do you know who James Lindsay is?
Yes, I like James Lindsay. I know some people who I'm not affiliated. I just know, you know, the dissident right. They don't like him. They think he's like either a cook or a controlled opposition. I don't think he is at all. I think he's legit. I quite like him. They don't like him, but I don't care about their opinion.
I never like him a lot. Yeah, I never fall into the so and so. Yeah, go ahead.
They call it containment. So the idea that the establishment will put these people who are apparently anti-establishment but aren't, to keep us in check, even though a lot of these people are putting a lot of stuff on the line to speak these truths, you know, to power, to quote the left. So I don't buy that argument, really. I do think there's controlled opposition, like a Richard Spencer, but his job is to destroy, not to contain. You know, that's what I think they do.
I think people are too...
Get back to it.
Yeah, let's get back. So I think that many people are really quick to call anyone controlled opposition. I've heard it about all kinds of people, and I'm just like, I'm going to take people as they are. I don't listen to Richard Spencer. I've never thought that anything he had to say was at all interesting or intellectual. So I don't even, like, whatever. I don't really care what he's doing. I don't think he's very relevant. I'm not concerned. But I think that the reason why I asked you about James Lindsay was that he has a series podcast called New Discourses. And in New Discourses, he reads through many essays and writings by, you know, Marxists or leftists or commies or whatever, going all the way back to like the 60s, you know, even before that. He's read and he basically like reads through them. So you're just getting what they wrote. You're just learning what they believe, right? And he did a series, I think it was on queer theory. Well, I think he's still doing it, but there was this feminist lesbian woman. I think she was relevant in the 80s, and she wrote about queer education, and she was getting a lot of her info from Paolo Freire, who was he's kind of like the guy who essentially created Marxist education. And so like what what I got from this so far is that like this stuff has been in our education system forever, right? It's been, and it does, and just so you guys know, it's not public education exclusively. It's in all education. If you send your kid to a private school for like, 40 grand a year, guess what? They're getting indoctrinated. If you're sending them to a charter school, a Catholic school, it doesn't matter. So because the first of all, it doesn't matter because once it gets into education as like a standard of teaching, then many, principals and instructors, they're just going to use it without really wondering or questioning whether or not, it's indoctrinating students, whether or not it's sending them a specific message, right? Paolo Fieri, not Guy Fieri. They're not going to Flavor Town. They're going to Commie Town. But so this is already in the system, and some instructors know it, which is why you get all these TikTok videos of commie teachers like openly sharing their beliefs. But I think that a large number don't. They're just doing their job, and it just so happens that it serves these ends. So it turns kids into activists, or at least that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
So
although I would say that they're already on that path just by
absolutely
being in certain families.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Yeah. So then like the ultimate it's not the ultimate goal, but a lot of what these people in education have also been doing is essentially trying to sexualize children. And Vosh is, as an example, Vosh has actually like basically admitted to this when I think somebody asked him about, like the ethics of having sex with an underage child. And he said that once you eliminate all power differentials, once you flattened all power differences, then there shouldn't be an ethical problem with, having sex with minors. And but the thing is though, it sounds like he's pulling that out of his ass just so that he can win an argument. But the truth is, if you read Paolo Fieri, if you read this feminist lesbian woman whose name I can't remember, they say it too. They say the same thing. And so it's like you have this like dark alliance of people who want to live in a, communist utopia where everything is shared, and it's like the economic view. But then there are people who want, they want to be completely sexually liberated. And you could trace this back to the sexual, what was it? The sexual
revolution?
Yeah, it might. Yeah, I think from the 60s, sexual
There's
liberation.
Been a few kind of mini revolutions though. There were people who were like that in the 30s. They weren't widespread like it would later be in this. Well, even in the 60s, they weren't widespread, but like they were there. The seeds were planted way back then. But like, I know what you're saying, and it's really interesting. And what was I going to say? I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. Keep talking.
All right. Yeah. So Gin Bottle says Eve Ensler. That might be who I'm talking about. I'd have to like double check it, but I think you might be right. And like this stuff goes way back before. Like there was, I've talked about Mary Wollstonecraft, who is credited as being the first feminist, and
I've remembered it now.
Go ahead.
Like that's another thing that people brought up, the grooming of the children and things like that, which is happening in schools. But I remember the first few stories that came out about that, it wasn't even the teachers that were starting it, it was the pupils themselves. They must be getting it from somewhere, and it's not just, I don't think it's always the teachers. I think the teachers were enabling it by either turning a blind eye because they don't want to be accused of being transphobic or something like that, or actively engaging with it. Because there's most famously a case in the Daily Mail where there was this clique of girls in a school in Britain, and they were all non-binary, and some of them were going on to have mastectomies and things like that, having their breasts surgically removed and stuff like that. Whether or not that's now happened, I don't know. It was a few years ago, but I think nowadays we're beginning to see there is a more institutional push, but they're not getting their own way with it. It's at least in regards to in America, the queer education stuff is starting to hit a brick wall. But when it comes to advocating for kids to have, hormone therapy and stuff, even in Scandinavia, I think all those countries were, I don't know about Finland, but I know Sweden, Denmark, and Norway have already made, before most other countries, made laws against it. And in my country, it is happening. It just, we like to do things slow. But there is generally in the mainstream a desire not for that to happen. Although I think Labour want it, but they're irrelevant. And then obviously in America, it's not happening either in certain states and in other European countries also. So
Yeah.
it's still a good argument against the whole what is a woman thing isn't relevant. But when you look at what's going on the ground and you see the news, like this stuff is already having a lot of pushback, and it is in the mainstream, and laws are being written against it. And I think they've lost it. They're never gonna get kids to convert. I'm not well, yeah, they are, but you know what I mean, to transition.
Well, yeah, to transition.
It's
yeah.
adults only.
It's gonna be a ongoing fight, though. Like they're not gonna give up on it, and I think that ultimately the goal is to sexualize kids. And I think there are definitely people involved in education and other entertainment. If you see what Disney has confessed to, and I'm sure that, and that's just the one person who made that confession, right? Like we don't know how widespread that is. And they do want that. And so like, it's something that we should, I would say remain adamant, especially if you are a parent. You need to be really involved with your school and making sure that like what's going on there's nothing sketchy going on. Like I did, I do substitute teaching. And they told me, I do it on the side for a little extra money. They told me that, and when they were telling everyone about the rules of being a sub, they said you are, under no circumstances are you to touch the children, right? Like like in any way. So if a kid starts fighting with another kid, you can't go in and break them up by grabbing them, for example. And I said, no problem. Like I already know, first of all, I was the only man applying for this. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to like draw attention to myself like that. And so like, that's sort of like a rule. I think that's fairly common, at least in Virginia, if not like all over the States. But, I think that is like a kind of serious, and it has an effect on children. And in particular, I think that like, abused kids, whether they suffered it at home, which is possible, or entirely likely, in fact, or in some other context like school, I think that they're more likely to then become abusers themselves. So, it's like there's a cycle that we're trying to like, cut off, and only like the one generation of children that basically faces that and undoes that, prevents that cycle from repeating, is the only people that can stop it, right? It's like a generational thing. So, okay, so I wanted to ask you about, because I do think that this whole thing, like the reason why women in sports and women in like, I don't know, bathrooms, whatever that shit is, the main reason why I think that's happening goes back to what I was just saying about abuse. I think that trans people have like a extremely disproportionate high, they're very, very likely to have experienced sexual abuse when they were younger. And I think that it has an effect of putting that identity on them for one reason or another. And of course, I don't know what the abuse is, but I've spoken to Blair White, which I'm sure you guys know, and she used to come on our show way before she blew up, and we talked about that. And of course, in her history, she had abuse, and most kids do to some degree, especially if you're being raised in a home without a father. I think that there's like a pretty good chance that you're going to get, beaten or abused by your mother, and then that's going to affect you going on down the line. So because of that, I think that the problem, especially with trans women, is that we don't have a positive masculine identity. There's no sense of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's
so
often demonized to hell. Like, what is positive? Oh, it's this. I hate to use the word because it's actually an insult to the word. It's this effeminate, feminized view of what a man ought to be, what the feminists want to mold men into being, which is this kind of weak, I guess what people call a cook, basically. But it's a bit more complicated than that, though. It really is. They're literally trying to create a new man. I think Marx tried to do that. Some Marxists tried to do a new man, but it was more economic, wasn't it? It was social as well, but it wasn't like gender. It was humans, because back then man also was gender neutral, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So but now they're literally trying to create a new man. I think this is something that the second wave came up with, because they thought, well, I think, funny enough, with Jermaine Gray, well, we'll deconstruct it and recreate them. We'll raise them to be different. Well, it turns out actually you don't like that. You reveal preferences. You prefer men the way that they always were, and you've realised, well, they may not admit their mistakes, but they kind of are without saying it. And now they're wondering where all the good men are. Why have we got all these guys around? Why have we got the trans people? Because trans people, in a way, are the chickens that have come home to roost. I've been saying that for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
For the likes of Jermaine Gray, a lot of these are British feminists. Jermaine Gray, all the TERFs. There's one who's Julie Thingy. I forgot her name. The chat will remember. The political lesbian one. Like, these are women who spent their whole careers. Julie Bindel, yeah.
Bindel,
these are women who spent their whole careers deconstructing masculinity and trying to destroy it. I think some of them. I think Julie Bindel. Do you remember that BBC interview that went a bit viral years ago amongst the anti-SJW content creators? Like Hagbar Salim did a really good breakdown of it, if you remember him.
I do.
Sargon even did it. It was like BBC 4, and they were talking about militant feminism in the 1960s and 70s. A lot of them were committing outright acts of terrorism, but they would call it vandalism, obviously. Like, they were burning down sex shops and stuff. And Julie Bindel kind of inferred that she knew people who were doing that, if not her doing it herself in her little cell.
Were they sex negative feminists?
To ally myself. What was that? Sorry.
Well, I said they were sex negative feminists. Is that why they were doing that?
Some of them were, yeah. Some of them were, yeah.
Right.
But they were outright committing terrorism against private-owned businesses. That did nothing wrong to them other than be some people say degenerate, but they're not harming anybody. It's just.
Yeah.
But now all that has come home to all that has influenced the third wave, who've taken that to the next level, and I've thought, well, why not all just become genderless and go from one thing to another? Why not? And that's deconstructed femininity, which has ruined the TERFs.
Yes.
They have no one to blame but themselves. I have no sympathy.
I have no sympathy either. I think that there's reason to be very suspicious of the TERFs, because the TERFs are, like I saw an interview. Well, okay. Let me ask you this. So on the side of people who are engaged in the debate about trans women and bathrooms in sports, there is a figure named Posey Parker. And
God.
Yeah, so Posey Parker is getting a lot of support from people who think that that they essentially they're just all team women. They're just on team women, and Posey Parker appears to be like this, champion of biological females. And I am I'm not a fan, because isn't she still a feminist? Yeah. So
there's nothing based out. Goodfella, do you remember? You know Goodfella, right?
I do. Yeah, I still
he did a video
know him.
Response about her, because she's interviewed on either Sky or the BBC, and it was actually about the trans question, but really her arguments were not about any of that. It was really about how evil men are, and he broke it down and showed you that that's really what she's saying.
Exactly.
I'll have to try and find the video, but it was really good.
Yeah, and I
And I've been
believe
saying that for a while. And when I called her out on this, you get people in the comments, "Oh, she's not misandrist. She's not a feminist." Or some people have actually said she's not a feminist. Like,
yeah.
she is. She even looks like one.
Yeah, I know. It's like not at all surprising. She's like one of those, you know, like have you
She's
noticed?
not Camille Paglia, that's for sure.
No. And even like, and this is like, maybe it's just my thing. Maybe I'm really hardline, but I criticize Christina Hoff Sommers and Camille Paglia all the time. Because I know that at the end of the day, what I think is happening in some cases, these feminists that are, you know, that come across as rational or fact-based or whatever, they're just trying to rescue the term feminist. They're just trying to protect it because they need it. It's an identity that they have like essentially built their whole life around. And so they can't like just throw it out and be like, I'm not one of those anymore. It's trash.
I think a lot of that is age as well.
Is it?
A lot of that is age.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I know a lot of people who are older leftists who don't like what's happened with it, but they refuse to make the next step, you know, to take the red pill, you know. That's their choice. I understand it. It's hard. But Camille Paglia at least understands the necessity.
I mean,
normal masculinity, you know,
she's she's mostly rational. I think it's got to do with the fact that she's kind of she likes men, you know, as in a sexual way, because what I know about Paglia was she was a big pro, you know, sex positive type of person, and she doesn't, and in order for you to be sex positive with regards to men, you have to like take them as they are. Right? You can't be like, well, I would really love men if they were more like women. No, it doesn't work that way. So,
and that's at least honest from her part. And I don't mind that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I'm glad that you said that about Posey Parker, because I think that what's going on there is that she was okay with all of the damage that feminism had done up until this, and the truth is what's happening with the trans thing is a direct product of feminism in general. Whether you call it TERF feminism or intersectional, it doesn't matter, because they all have the same root belief, right? Which is that we have, throughout all of history, we've lived in a patriarchal society where men have, you know, oppressed women at the expense of women and to the benefit of themselves, and that women never had any of that. And so if you believe that as a foundational thing, it doesn't really matter what comes after that, because that's a lie, and that's the number one foundational pillar of the belief. And so I even saw, it might have been on Lotus Eaters, but I don't know for sure. It might have been, but I think it was Julie Bindel, and they were talking to her about this whole trans thing. And of course, you know, she's on the TERF side, you know, if you want to call it that. But the reason for it is because she hates men. So she basically, it might have been Chris Williamson, actually. I know I saw her being interviewed.
Modern Wisdom, yeah.
Yeah, Modern Wisdom. It might have been, but the point is, I saw it and I noticed that a lot of these like second wave feminists are coming out of the woodwork to discuss the trans thing, and they're using it so that they can better sell their brand. In my opinion, they want to sell their brand of feminism, which still hates men, but they're just like using which is really ironic, because they're using what they're calling the victimization of women by trans women as the means by which they can get their talking points in there, you know?
Yeah, honestly, this might be controversial, but in many ways, I think the second wave are actually worse. They're far more violent and militant, whereas the third wavers they have a lot of they have more influence, but they're they use a lot more soft power. They're not actually trying to bludgeon you, and their rhetoric is a lot less. It is hateful, but it's not as hateful. Like it's not. I don't feel like I'm being spat at in my face when they're moaning at me about all this stuff. But with second waves like Julie Binder, like it's hard to explain. Like you see the hate in their eyes, you know, or in the tone of their voice. You know, there's just I don't know. The second wave just seems so more visceral. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the current wave can be dangerous. But like if you look at what happened after Roe v. Wade, Or even leading up to what happened, where there was like some guy and he had like, I think he had like plans to, kidnap and murder like what's his name's family, that judge.
Oh, Clarence Thomas.
Not Clarence Thomas. The other one, the one who was accused of gang raped. No, not that guy. Kavanaugh. Yeah, they were at Kavanaugh's house, and the guy admitted to it when he got arrested. But I think that there's still like that violent, radical angle. But I think that in the 60s, it was probably considered to be. I think it was worse back then. Like now that I think about it, the Weather Underground, they were a big radical feminist communist group, and they like bombed. Valerie Solanas, right? Exactly. Angela Davis's crazy ass. So there were definitely like bell hooks. Yeah. So but again, I can.
Shinzo Abe, guys, by the way, I forgot to say.
So for the Japanese Prime Minister, the former Japanese Prime
Minister,
ex-Prime Minister, Again, this actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Wasn't he the guy who was essentially like really, really like heavily promoting Japanese citizens to get married and make babies?
Yeah,
like that was like his big thing, right?
So.
He wanted to.
That explains a meme that Jim Jesus sent me.
Yeah,
it was have sex. So it was like a beautiful Japanese background, right? And it's his face, have sex. See you later, space cowboy.
Yeah, I've seen that meme. Exactly.
Meme.
Yeah. So I don't know any other reason why someone would kill him other than that. Like, it's the only thing I know about him is that. So
it's more to do with rearming Japan against China, I think.
Oh,
or
maybe
it could be fat anime Jesus, some of his followers. Revenge. We don't know. It's more likely it's a radical pacifist. But back to the second wavers, and I think these people play into the. I think TERFs don't realize that they are a distraction, and that they've already lost the civil war, and but I think they're also trying to co-opt certain conservative movements. I think that's what they're trying to do as well, because they're very good at it. They're very good at subverting. They've done it before to certain places, and they're trying to pass themselves off as free speech defenders now. They're like First Amendment protectors and fighting for people's rights to speak on college and university campuses across the West, and they're against no platforming. When these were the same people that would no platform pickup artists back in the day, or anybody who was vaguely, conservative back in the 70s, because that's when no platforming was invented in this country. I don't know about America, but like now that all of a sudden they're fighting for free speech, and I'm like, you didn't care about that until it started affecting you.
Yeah.
And now you expect me to care for you? I don't think so, mate.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like. It seems to me, it was like, do you remember Razor Blade Candy? Maybe that was from a while back.
Was he mute? He was like a mute guy.
Text
to speech.
Yeah. He would do these text to speech things, and he couldn't. He had like some kind of injury or physical problem. He couldn't talk. Yeah. So I remember him talking about in a video he made way back in the day. Where he said that the radical fringe parts of a movement starts the next wave of that movement like later. So he said that like, the radicals of the first wave became the mainstream of the second wave, and the radicals of the second wave became the mainstream of the third wave. And so, I think it's just like that, because you basically make a complaint about something that you feel like you should get. People try to accommodate that if it's possible, because sometimes the things that feminists ask for are can't be legislated into existence, right? And then but then like there's a whole new set of demands and problems, right? So that's, I think, why we're at the point now where there are men insisting to be seen as women and then given the same perks that women get, which I think is funny and ironic, because again, it goes back to what I was saying before. There's like fundamental questions about men that we should be asking, because why do men have the idea that they're going to go, be treated better by the system? Where do they get that from? Well, it's true. Like they will be. And so, like, why wouldn't they pursue that?
That conspiracy was, I think it was directed at Shinzo Abe. Yeah, Shinzo Abe didn't understand the root causes of why people weren't having kids in Japan. It's a deep-seated cultural thing about honor and work ethic that they've taken to extreme since the World War II. I get that. Just thought I'd point that out. I do. Despite all of that, he wasn't actually that bad a statesman. I was just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is why, again, Japan is hurting, because the men are like, this isn't worth it, and they're basically just not, taking up what I guess Japanese people would call their duty as men. But if it's not worth it, like, the women are, probably pretty trash. I mean, they're probably pretty materialistic, and they're probably more work than it would be worth for these guys. And so they're just like, yeah, I'm just going to watch anime now, and I'm going to indulge in that. So, and I think that, yeah, but like, no one is saying, and this is the thing, this is like all over the world. No one is saying, well, you know what? I think that we need to look at how we're treating men in our society, and how are women treating men in our society, and what can we do to make that better? Because if men just check out, then everything's going to collapse. Like, if they just say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, you're going to lose it all. You're going to suddenly realize, that it's men that keep everything running. So, I can't have too much sympathy. I mean, I'm not suggesting, like, in China, I think, they basically just force men to do shit. Like, they, that's what they do. Like, I don't think, I don't think they necessarily, like, encourage positive masculinity. I don't think that they make a story around, like, that sort of like raises men up.
Dead masculine compared to the West, which plays into a lot of black pillars thoughts about the rest of the world, and in particular China. Like, they think it's dead. Oh, look, they're promoting healthy masculine stuff, and it's like, they're not actually.
No, they're not.
That's a front. It's propaganda, and you felt it again.
That's what you are supposed to look at. But in China, the men are just, you're going to join the military. It's mandatory, or else, and that's it, right? That's not encouraging positive masculine.
That no one's going to live in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
there's a reason why they do that. It's real estate for value. It's basically where you put your money. That's why there's all these ghost cities. No one's ever going to live in it but people will buy it, and it's to invest money in. It's weird. There's a channel that explains it called Serpent ZA or Serpent Z. He's really good. It's like a South African who lived there for 14 years. He explains it well. But anyway, should we get back to the topic? But it is 9:05.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap it up, and we'll talk more in the patron show. But let me just end on this. I'll ask you one more thing. So I think we can both agree that one thing that we should see more of is so that we do encourage a kind of self-sustaining, individualist, masculine identity that isn't built around women, that isn't, built around serving anyone but, serving a community would be good, but it has to be a choice. So something positive. So what do you think you would like to see more of that might encourage that? Like, what kind of changes do you think would be good?
Honestly, and it's already happening. So, but I'm going to say it anyway. Just
what's
more
happening?
Acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Well, more acknowledgement of men's issues in regards to abuse and stuff like that. Health has already been going on for a few years, at least in this country. But recently, I had a massive white pill. I was on YouTube getting ready for work. Next thing I know, I see this domestic violence advert, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Time to click the skip button. It was for men.
Really?
I mean, admittedly, it was about coercion. It was about psychological abuse, essentially. But I thought it's a start. And interestingly enough, it was all the models in it, the actors, they were all below middle-aged to about middle-aged. And I think I know what they were aiming for. They were aiming for men who were under deeply controlling wives who don't realize they're being abused. You know, the type of woman who will shame them into dressing a certain way, eating a certain way, watching certain things. You've seen it. We've all seen it. I work in retail. I've seen it far too many times. Men you otherwise would assume, if you were wearing your feminist goggles, the height of the patriarchy, the dead masculine looking, the working class, self-made men, yet they're essentially deferring a hell of a lot and a little bit, dare I say, under the heel of their wives when it should be a partnership.
Yep.
And I think that's what they're trying. They're not. It wasn't about violence, unfortunately, but I think that will come with time. But about coercion, I was like, damn right.
Yeah. And like the
thing, but you know.
Yeah, the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing, I think, is the thing that
it's
becoming
a wave.
It red pilled a lot of people, and I'm fairly certain of that, and even women, which I was surprised by. But
I was surprised that it's. I thought I was just in the minority with a bunch of fellow weirdos like you and the pro Johnny Depp side. You know, I thought it was just us, but then seeing normies come out saying, literally, where I used to work, we were serving this couple, and the guy said she needs a slap, and everyone was in agreement.
Oh, wow, based.
Basically, yeah, based. Based Mancunian, yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, we're gonna go into the patron show, so don't go away, and we'll talk to some patrons. So if you guys want to come hang out with us and continue the conversation, I think I am gonna talk a little bit more about the Johnny Depp thing, and maybe like some of the other whatever the patrons want to talk about, really. So maybe some cultural stuff, I don't know. If you guys want to join us, then go to feedthebadger.com, set up a monthly subscription. $5 a month gets you into the Discord, and you'll be able to watch this live just like you're watching now. And
recently, guys, do it.
Huh? What was that?
I fed you guys recently. I fed the badger recently.
Oh, they're very nice, very cool. Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate it. So $5 a month to get you in the Discord. You'll be able to watch the additional content, and if you give more, then you'll get more exclusive access. You'll be able to join us in conversations. You'll be able to, and then there's all the community stuff that's very cool. There's game nights, there's movie nights, etc. There's writers workshops. There's all kinds of stuff. So go to feedthebadger.com, set up a monthly subscription, and I hope to see you guys in the patron show. Now, if you guys like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. Yeah, it's over there. Hit the bell for notifications, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and most importantly, please share this video, because sharing is caring. So thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Fireside Chat, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.